Tonight, the sacking of former Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy in a palace coup has set in motion a set of events over the next 7 days that could determine the next presidential election and the future of the Republic. And that's not hyperbole. Also tonight, our feature investigation for premium subscribers. Who Framed Hunter Biden turns the table on the political operatives who exposed the president's son's private data. That's all coming up tonight on Narrative. Hello everybody and welcome to Narrative. A reminder that the second half of tonight's show, part 1 of Who Framed Hunter Biden, is only accessible to premium subscribers. You can access it by signing up at Patreon or YouTube. You won't want to miss this investigation. But let's get to the news first. The stunning news came out of Washington, D.C. on Tuesday. House Republicans had ousted their Speaker, Kevin McCarthy, from the speakership in a dramatic vote on the House floor. Hours later, McCarthy announced he would not attempt to reclaim the position, which is the second most powerful in the United States. As McCarthy lay metaphorically wounded on the House floor, it was Florida Congressman and GOP firebrand Matt Gaetz who acted as Brutus, holding up the blood-soaked dagger in his hands. The irony, of course, is that it was Democrats acting in unison who were Gaetz's chief accomplices in ending McCarthy's leadership. Granted, McCarthy had done himself no favors by criticizing Democrats on CBS's Face the Nation on Sunday morning. But considering McCarthy's potential replacements, you have to wonder why Democrats ousted McCarthy at all. Leader Hakeem Jeffries is gambling that the Republican conference won't be able to coalesce around one candidate who represents the entire party. But if they do, the House may be in the hands of one of the most extreme politicians ever to gavel in as Speaker. Judging by the two leading GOP candidates, Democrats may come to deeply regret their vote to oust McCarthy. House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan, Republican from Ohio, was first to publicly announce his candidacy, followed closely by House Majority Leader Steve Scalise of Louisiana, throwing his hat into the ring, and then Kevin Hern of Oklahoma threw his hat in. Of the three, the frontrunner is current House Judiciary Committee Chair Jim Jordan, who has consistently threatened American democracy since arriving in D.C. in 2016. But Jordan is also the highest-ranking chairman involved in attempts to impeach President Biden over the business dealings of his son, Hunter Biden. Which is why electing him Speaker could fundamentally alter the course of the Republic. Former Speaker McCarthy may have launched the impeachment inquiry 2 weeks ago, but his approach was too tepid for the extremist wing of his party. Take a listen to Matt Gaetz excoriate Kevin McCarthy for not being serious about the impeachment inquiry into President Biden just 2 weeks ago on MSNBC.
He doesn't really mean it. He knows he broke the deal in January. He knows there are enough of us in the Republican conference who want to hold him to that deal. And so he's throwing impeachment out like an ill-cast lure, and he has no real intent to follow through. By the way, if he did, we'd subpoena Hunter Biden. Like, if this was a serious effort, call it an inquiry, an impeachment, oversight, whatever you want. If you were really serious, you'd subpoena Hunter Biden, get answers. They're not serious, and that's why you see this failure theater in the absence of real accountability.
More than anything, the reason Matt Gaetz ousted McCarthy is because McCarthy refused to take a full vote on the impeachment inquiry. Jim Jordan has not only embraced the idea, he's embraced Matt Gaetz, which suggests if Jordan is made Speaker, one of his first moves may be to call a vote on President Biden's impeachment. In the meantime, Representative Patrick McHenry of North Carolina will serve as the temporary Speaker under House rules. Republicans will meet next week to select their nominee, who will then be put forward for a full House vote. And that's when things may take a very dramatic turn. Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries, known for his very cool demeanor, would never risk a Biden impeachment. He's just too smart to do anything like that. So he's likely calculating a very different ending to this saga. In a twist worthy of a season finale of the fictional series House of Cards, the House Republicans are so fractured and their majority in the House so fragile, Democrats only need a handful of moderate Republicans to join them in supporting Jeffries as the unity Speaker candidate. He would then lead a coalition government which would wrest control of the House away from Republicans and permanently sideline the extremist Republicans like Matt Gaetz, Jim Jordan, and Marjorie Taylor Greene. Don't take my word for it. Here's Assistant Democratic Party leader Jim Clyburn.
Hakeem Jeffries. He is someone who has demonstrated over the last several weeks, in fact, ever since January, when we put his name up. The American people have been looking at him and the way he's run the Democratic caucus. And if you're going to have a bipartisan speaker, let those 8 join with us on the Democratic side. And let's give Hakeem Jeffries the 218 votes he'll need to be Speaker of the House. Now, I'm saying that. I know full well that's as far-fetched as almost anything I could think of. But if those 8 people cannot work with their own, maybe they'll work with us.
Such an ending is obviously too sweet to even contemplate as being real, but let's just do it for a minute here. Is it likely that as Matt Gaetz gloated about his speaker kill, he missed the larger plot taking shape around him? That his supposed moment of glory of taking down Kevin McCarthy would actually lead to his very own demise? Surely such a delicious ending are only fit for Shakespearean dramas and the House of Cards. But in this case, it could well be reality. We only have to wait 6 days to find out. And perhaps the best reason for sane Republicans to support Jeffries as Speaker is what the remainder of tonight's show is all about. House Republicans, Jim Jordan and Matt Gaetz amongst them, want to impeach President Joe Biden because of his son's business dealings. If the claims against Biden are true, then an inquiry might be justified. But what I found out in my investigation is that the Hunter Biden scandal is not your typical Washington scandal. It's a weapon, targeted at the heart of democracy. And I'll explain why as we launch our investigation into the origin of the Hunter Biden laptop scandal in our new premium series, Who Framed Hunter Biden? It'll begin in 60 seconds. Welcome back. The ousting of Kevin McCarthy and the possibility of Speaker Jim Jordan are both historic and chilling for the Republic. Kevin McCarthy may have had no spine. He was a glutton for greed, a lapdog for lobby groups, and a Donald Trump appeaser. But he is no Jim Jordan. Jordan has been called out time and time again as an agent of Russian disinformation. He's been a Kremlin mouthpiece since he joined Congress, opposing Donald Trump's first impeachment and being a key organizer and enabler of the January the 6th coup. He, along with Matt Gaetz and others, are doing now what they couldn't complete in 2020, attempting to overthrow the sitting U.S. president using weaponized disinformation gained by our foreign adversaries. That's what Who Framed Hunter Biden is about. You won't see any revelations about Hunter's activities or private life, no data or photos here. What you will see is evidence we have amassed revealing the Hunter Biden scandal for what it is, a foreign intelligence operation designed to oust a democratically elected president and return an insurrectionist, twice impeached, 4 times indicted dictator in waiting Donald Trump to power.
I think the issue for us is the longer we don't understand these points, we're just going to keep showing up here and we're going to, this is going to continue.
You just break me down.
And all we want to know is just the order things how they happened so that he can get it right. And until then, you're going to continue to base these questions.
I still have an interest in protecting the people I care about. And because of that, I don't feel comfortable about talking about the factor that led to the reaction.
That is the voice of John Paul McIsaac, a computer specialist from Delaware, being interviewed by a gaggle of reporters on the day the New York Post broke the story about Hunter Biden's laptop. The story broke in October 2020, just 1 week before the election. The sudden publication gave the story the stench of a political operation. That was certainly the question on reporters' minds that day, as they grilled McIsaac at his electronic repair store in Delaware. According to McIsaac, a man claiming to be Hunter Biden brought in 3 water-damaged MacBook laptops to his repair shop in April 2019.
And I asked him for his names, because the standard procedure is, I'm like, let me get you checked into the system. First name, Hunter. Last name. And then there was a long pause. And then it was, all right, then I'm like, oh. Then they kept working. I have tons of, well, not tons. I have a handful of famous people that come in here, but I either don't recognize them or I don't know who simply the older sister who caused me. That's interesting. Customer came in with 3 products, three liquid damage MacBook Pros.
One of the laptops allegedly contains sensitive personal and business information related to Hunter Biden. When Hunter did not return to retrieve the laptop, despite repeated requests, McIsaac claims he felt he had no choice but to hand over the device to federal authorities.
I thought that if people knew what I knew, then my life would be in danger. If people knew what you knew, the people as in, again, Biden's, are you talking about? I mean, because now people do know, isn't it? There's a lot of players. Like, the Ukrainians? Don't put that in there. Guy's got a hit squad.
McIsaac never provided any more details about the Ukrainians or their hit squad, but he did say that those threats against his life are why he first contacted the FBI and then sought political help. The laptop and its shocking contents remained out of public view until the New York Post published its series of explosive reports in October 2020, just weeks before the bitter presidential election between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. The timing fueled speculation that it was part of an orchestrated political smear campaign against the Biden family. And if you listen closely, McIsaac does appear to admit that he gave the laptop's hard drive to none other than Rudy Giuliani via his lawyer, Robert Costello.
Because a lot of people don't, and if they were accused of working with Rudy Giuliani, they would say, no, I hate that guy.
I don't like hate. You should talk about.
I don't like that guy.
I'm not that type.
He doesn't tell the truth.
I'm not built that way. When you're afraid and you don't know anything about the depth of the waters that you're in, you kind of you want to play the lifeguard. Oh shit! It was Rudy Giuliani was the lifeguard. No comment. Cool.
I mean, you just said you sought out a lifeguard.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
I sought out a lifeguard with my friend that knows more about this stuff than I do, and I sought out help from a plethora of people, and be surprised how nobody wants to talk to you.
And so when you were at the end of the line, you said, all right, I'm going to talk to Rudy Giuliani's lawyer. No one else will help me. I'm going to get them.
No comment.
Well, it sounds like you just said you sought out help from several people, And so there was an intermediary between you, someone, and Rudy Giuliani team.
No comment on that part, but I needed help. I thought the FBI was going to help me, and then I got the overwhelming sense that they weren't going to help me. And I needed to do something else.
Help you to do what?
Keep me safe.
And now we're back live here on Narrative. Up until that point, up until last week, really, that is all the information we had. Then a surprise lawsuit was launched by none other than Hunter Biden himself. He sued Giuliani and Costello for the total annihilation of his privacy. The lawsuit alleges that the defendants became obsessed with the data they'd obtained from Hunter's devices, including what they claim came from his laptop. Then Section 2 of this very interesting cold case, and again, we're live now. The previous part was recorded, so things are going to be a little bit disjointed here, but it's much nicer for me to be able to contact you directly and hear from you in the chat rooms if you've got anything to say as I review some of this additional content that we've got for you on this interesting case of who framed Hunter Biden. What you've just been listening to is an interview with JP McIsaac, who is the owner of that famed Delaware store where this laptop of Hunter Biden was apparently dropped off and where he was somehow able to discover all this personal information of Hunter Biden. Now, the more we've investigated this and the more we listen to that tape, which is why we played it for you right now, it seems to me that, nothing he's saying is 100% the full story. He does seem to have had some involvement with Rudy Giuliani, and he does seem to have some involvement with other people, including people with the Ukrainian hit squad. So, it certainly does not seem like just the typical electronics store owner who came across a laptop. And, this story has been discredited for a while, but it is interesting that in the lawsuit against Costello and Giuliani, Hunter Biden says the defendants themselves admit that their purported possession of a laptop is in fact not a laptop at all. It is, according to their own public statements, an external drive that defendants were told contained hundreds of gigabytes of the plaintiff's personal data. At least some of the data, and the defendants obtained copies and proceeded to hack into and tamper with which belongs to the plaintiff. But plaintiff's data was manipulated, altered, and damaged before it was copied and sent to the defendants, and the defendants' illegal hacking and tampering has involved further alterations and damage to that data to a degree that is presently unknown to the plaintiff. So that is very interesting detail for people like you and me who are fascinated by this stuff, because we've always spoken about this laptop as a laptop. We've never thought about it being anything else, but it isn't a laptop as it turns out. It is perhaps something much more than a laptop. It could have been data that came from the iPhone of Hunter Biden. Here's another piece of this lawsuit against the Costello and Giuliani. You'll notice at the end there, it says defendant Costello also admitted publicly that he accessed and reviewed plaintiff's data, reflecting what he claimed was the laptop's photo roll. Now, laptops don't have photo rolls, as far as I know. They have photos. They have a photo section. But the photo roll is something that is quite unique to the iPhone or whatever phone you might be using. And so it's another indicator that this data that they were looking at was not laptop data, but phone data that was seized from Hunter Biden's either iPhone or from a backup of his iPhone. Now, if you remember, this is not the first time such a thing has happened, because there have been iPhones and backups of iPhones in the various scandals involving Democrats in the last few years. Remember, of course, Hillary Clinton had her backups exposed in, so to speak, in the Anthony Weiner case. So think about all those things, because there's some connection there, and we'll discover that later on. But for example, and this is the other thing about Rudy and Costello, is they were going around everywhere showing everyone that they had what they called the laptop, and that they said it was loaded with data from a hard drive from plaintiff's computer and then onto Giuliani's computer. Now, we know that is in fact true, that there was a hard drive that came from somewhere. Maybe it came from JP McIsaac, or maybe it came from elsewhere, and that Rudy Giuliani does in fact go around with these photographs and shows them to anyone he wants to see them, because it's part of his smear campaign against Hunter Biden. So the important thing to take away here is that there is a chain of possession supposedly that went from John Paul McIsaac from the Delaware pawn shop to Robert Costello to Rudy Giuliani. And that never happened. We have to just assume that there's some sort of setup with the maybe Ukrainian mob that involved John Paul McIsaac, hence the hit squads. Maybe he got, given this data from someone who is close to the Russians, maybe, and that they, he then in turn handed over to Robert Costello and Rudy Giuliani. Perhaps he was looking for help, as he claims, but boy, did he land up with the wrong people for help, because they're the ones who ended up distributing it. So we'll keep that in mind. I want you to keep that in mind, because that is one aspect of the story where we suddenly now think, well, maybe this wasn't a laptop. Maybe it was dropped off unusual means, not necessarily by Hunter Biden, maybe by a Ukrainian mobster of some sort. Maybe it landed up in this man's possession, not because he saw it, but because it was downloaded onto computers that he had. Now, it is interesting that we are talking about Ukraine there, because he mentions Ukrainian mobsters, and we know quite well that Rudy Giuliani loves Ukraine and certainly knows a lot of people in the Russian side of Ukraine. We know he's connected to Pavel Fuchs, the oligarch. We've reported on this ourselves many years ago. He got a $300,000 check just for, I think it was consulting, but more likely it was for something else. There's his connection to Lev Parnas and Furman, who are connected as well to the rabbi of Ukraine, and Rudy Giuliani is seen there in that Instagram post having cocktails or a smoke, I can't tell, with the chief rabbi. And then, of course, all these people are connected to each other through the Jewish community in the Russian side of Ukraine, which is currently being bombed by Russians. So keep in mind that Ukraine is not just an accidental character in this production, because, of course, Hunter Biden's allegations are based around Burisma. The initial impeachment allegations were based around Burisma. Here we are again, them trying to have another impeachment, this time against Joe Biden. And this time it's going to be, again, about Burisma and Hunter Biden. It seems impossible that this is coincidence. Obviously, we're talking about something that is very planned and executed in such a way to give us the sense of, that there is something bigger going on here that we maybe are not picking up. But keep in mind that Ukraine shows up a lot, that it probably wasn't an iPhone, it probably wasn't a laptop, it was an iPhone. And we'll tell you why that is significant in just a few seconds. In fact, let me just put up a slide to just underline that. There is no Hunter Biden laptop per se. So as people start talking about that, as they talk about all these allegations around Hunter Biden, there is none, as far as we know. Maybe someone was able to access his backup of his iPhone on his iCloud. That's possible. Maybe they were able to access it on his laptop, but this idea that the laptop was dropped off somewhere, that's not true. What happened was his iPhone was hacked, or his backup of his iPhone was hacked, and once they hacked it, they were able to take that backup and put it down into a hard drive, which they then distributed to Rudy and Costello. Now, they're not the only ones, by the way, who've done this, because in addition to the little team that Rudy Giuliani had there was also another team, and this team involved Jack Maxey, who worked for Steve Bannon for a while, and also Garrett Ziegler, who worked for Peter Navarro, the former trade secretary or the trade representative for the Trump White House. Both of these men have close associations with Asia. They tied to, we think, the Communist Party of China, although no one can guarantee us that that's the case. But they certainly seem to be connected to that part of the world, and certainly to people in the Chinese mainland. Now, so we've got two instances there where these guys also say they accessed Hunter's laptop. This, they say, they did via hacking into his encrypted software. So this is Garrett Ziegler now. He's one of these Navarro aides. He's a former White House aide who worked for Donald Trump as something called the Marco Polo nonprofit. And basically, he says here, it appears the data that the defendants have uploaded to their website from plaintiff's encrypted iPhone backup is data from their iPhone, like data the defendants have uploaded from the copy of the hard drive of the Biden laptop. So again, this is a separate lawsuit that's going against Garrett Ziegler now by Hunter Biden. And he says in an interview that occurred on and around December 22nd, defendant Ziegler bragged that defendants had hacked their way into the data purportedly from the plaintiff's iPhone, from Hunter Biden's iPhone. And we actually got into plaintiff's backup, and we were able to be the first group to do that in June of 2022. We cracked what was there. They cracked the code. They cracked the code that was there, and they were able to get to the iPhone backup on the computer. Now, how horrible is that a thing to do? But it does indicate that there was what the Washington Post has called a vanguard of sprawling network, which is quite a thing to call something, of Biden antagonists, from right-wing media organizations to congressional leaders to MAGA activists. And so Ziegler, like Navarro, like Steve Bannon, like this guy named Jack Maxey, are all part of this vast network trying to bring down Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. And they're doing it by making sure that all these allegations arrive at the impeachment inquiry, and then ultimately they hope that Joe Biden gets impeached. Now, this is just part one of our series into Who Framed Hunter Biden. The takeaways we want you to take away today are these. It was not a laptop. It was an iPhone. The other thing we want you to take away is that the iPhone was probably hacked, probably from a distance, and then downloaded onto a hard drive. And that's how it maybe got to JP's store, or to the lawyers in question, or to any of these guys, that it might have been a much more professional operation that hacked into these iPhones, because it's hard to crack the encryption code of Apple. I mean, that's not easy to do, but Garrett Ziegler seems to have done it. So how did he do it? And then we'll be answering some of those questions in the next while. But what you have here is definitely a conspiracy to defraud the American voters once again. The same thing that Republicans tried to do in 2021, where they tried to have the coup, they tried to defraud the vote. They're trying to do the same thing here. This is stuff that's been gained in almost certainty from the Russians or the Chinese. The hacking probably came from the Russians or from the Chinese, and that they found a convenient scapegoat in Mr. JP over there to launder that data into a so-called hard drive and then get it to the folks at Giuliani and Costello. But what we really are dealing with here is not your typical scandal in Hollywood. This is not something that just naturally erupted. This is something that has been set up by our foreign adversaries. And so you ask yourself, okay, why is Jim Jordan, who's about to be potentially the Speaker of the House, why is he pushing all this stuff that he knows, because he must know, why is he pushing all this Russian propaganda? Why is he pushing a Russian operation to unseat Donald Trump? Unseat Joe Biden and reinstate Donald Trump. What is going on here? Well, you can see what's going on here, of course. You've got people like Matt Gaetz, you've got people like Jim Jordan in the House who are so affected by Russian propaganda, who have for several years been affected by Russian propaganda, and that they are pursuing now what is a Russian strategy to get rid of the president of the United States. And it seems to me that anyone who allows this particular impeachment process to continue, no matter how accurate the information is there, is basically aiding and abetting the enemy in an attack on America's democracy. So these guys are actually committing crimes up there by allowing this impeachment proceeding to continue, by allowing this impeachment proceedings based on Russian disinformation to continue. It is, in fact, perhaps a treasonous crime. Maybe we'll find out one day that it is. And so we'll continue to unpack. This is just part one. I have so much more information about how Hunter Biden was framed by Russian intelligence, by people working here in the United States for Russian intelligence, in order to gain a specific footing that allowed them to do what they're doing now, which is the impeachment of Joe Biden. So when you think about the speaker and you think about why Kevin McCarthy was ousted, you got to think about the fact, well, he wasn't going for this impeachment. But you know who is going to go for the impeachment? Is Jim Jordan. So maybe the reason we're seeing Jim Jordan now in likelihood as the speaker and likely contention for the speaker is because he is going to vote for the impeachment and allow there to be a full vote on the floor and to push this Russian propaganda, this Russian operation to basically destroy the American democratic system by improperly and unjustly unseating a sitting president. I mean, it's the same thing as Jan 6. It just continues. When will we ever learn that the insurrectionists, well, they're insurrectionists. And they probably shouldn't be in the House in any form whatsoever. And we should follow the Constitution and not let them remain there. Thank you very much for being here tonight. I really wanted to try do this. This is the first time we've done a two-parter where part of the show has been live to everybody, and part of the show has just been, me and a few other people have shown up now for this special premium edition that we provide just for our premium viewers. And I think it's a good formula. Maybe we didn't quite get it right tonight, but I'm glad that we've been able to play around with something that allows me to have greater contact with the premium subscribers, who means so much to me at Narrative. You guys are the reason that Narrative exists. You're the reason why this show continues on its now 5th year. But it also gives me an opportunity to put out the other content to the main audience as well. So thank you. Leave me your thoughts. I haven't been able to see much on the chat rooms today here, but underneath this content, whether it's on the Patreon page or on House of Cards, leave your notes there. And then I'll also upload a complete version of this in the next maybe half an hour or so. So you'll be able to see the whole thing in full on Patreon in high definition. That is the show for tonight. I was hoping to exit with our usual anthem, which is the one we normally play. I call it the Odyssey, but it is not playing tonight. So instead of that, allow me to share with you this promo yet again of what is on tonight's show. I'll see you again next week. We'll continue the story of who framed Hunter Biden and continue our commentary about events as they proceed in the House in this incredible shakeup, which could see, as we reported earlier, Hakeem Jeffries, the Speaker of the House. Yeah, right now, of course, he's the Democratic leader of the House, but he could be. There, I'm back now. As soon as maybe next week, he could be the Speaker of the House. If this plan that I believe that they're trying to do right now, which is attract a bunch of Republicans over to their side, if they're able to do that, I think it's pretty certain that they'll get the 5 that they need, and that Hakeem will be the Speaker of the House, will be the first African-American Speaker of the House, and also the first Democrat to sort of seize power as Speaker of the House from a ousted Republican, Kevin McCarthy, who was ousted this week. Thanks for watching again on Narrative. We really appreciate you, and we appreciate your support at patreon.com/narrative, and we'll see you next time.